hin zur englischen Sprache. Wer möchte, also wer es auf Deutsch verfolgen möchte, kann dort die QR-Codes scannen, die da und da auf diesen Stelen aufgezeichnet sind. Dann kann man das englische Gespräch auf Deutsch auf dem Smartphone mitverfolgen, mit Untertiteln, wenn man mag. So, we're going international again, switch back to English and now look at how digital solutions can accelerate housing construction. I would now like to welcome Nicolaj Christensen to our stage. He is CEO at the Digital Hub in Denmark. Welcome, Nicolaj. Stage is yours.
Thank you very much. For the next 45 minutes, we are going to dive a little bit into how digital efficiency, digital processes has helped Denmark over the past 20 years in our construction sector. This is, of course, with respect to the German Bauturbo debate. And with that, I would like to invite my esteemed panelists onto the stage. Please welcome Mr. Adam Mollerup, Head of GovTech at cBrain, Mr. Peter Hansen, Partnership Director at EG, and Mr. Søren Sti Andersen from Aarhus Municipality. So welcome all three. And we are sitting in the right order. This is fantastic. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we have done in Denmark, and I would also just like to start out by addressing some of the prerequisites that we have in Denmark for this digital development that we've seen over the past couple of years, past couple of decades, to be honest. So of course a big part of this is also our central registries that we have readily available in Denmark. This makes it, I wouldn't say easy, but certainly easier in some respects to digitalize the entire process of digitalization, as well as certain key components such as digital identity that also enable us to verify identity and drive some of these processes in a secure and verified manner throughout. But with that, I hope we can still share some of the learnings that we've done, some of the things we've also done wrong over the past 20 years. But to start off with, I would like you to briefly introduce yourself, maybe starting with you, Søren.
Yeah, my name is Søren Andersen, and I come from the municipality of Aarhus Kommune in Denmark, and I'm a building owner.
It's working. My name is Peter Hansen. I represent EG, which is a Danish software provider, software company, really providing software solutions throughout the Nordics mainly for a lot of industries. In this context, however, we are a big provider of software for properties and for the construction phases of property, especially in Denmark, and have worked with Søren and other large building owners in the Danish market for a number of years. So that's me.
Guten Tag, everyone. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Adam Mollerup. I'm head of GovTech at cBrain. I have a past working for the Danish government in a number of different functions, and also with international perspectives on digitalization from the OECD. So we'll be very happy to speak to you about the experience we've had working with the Danish government, building platforms, building solutions to permitting, which has been and still is a big challenge in Denmark. We may also draw upon some experience from other countries. We have a number of countries that are very interested in solving this trick about how to accelerate permitting processes. So very happy to be here.
Thank you all. And Søren, I'm going to start off with you. So in your experience as a building owner coming from the municipality, what role has digitalization played in construction?
Well, digitalization is one of several approaches to make a more efficient building industry. And by that, we take the mandatory demands in Denmark. So for the last nearly 20 years, there's been mandatory demands.
And this is a very good point, the mandatory approach. This also goes in Denmark for a lot of our digitalization projects. For instance, if we look at our digital identity, these sort of key DPI components are mandatory in Denmark to use. And what obligations do you operate under at Aarhus Municipality?
What we do normally is that we implement on each building project three things. We have demands of having better information, having better communication, and also that all that should be good for the operation. What we gain of that is that we have a big success on a national level, that we have better quality, better time schedules, and also better economy for building projects.
And I remember when we were preparing for this debate, we were discussing what examples to bring forward here. We talked about you've built out a whole new part of the city with a lot of prestige projects, but you also mentioned the kindergarten, building a new smaller kindergarten in Aarhus Municipality. So maybe can you describe with that in mind some of the responsibilities of Aarhus Municipality when it comes to new constructions in Aarhus?
Yes, it is so that for the last nearly 20 years there's been those mandatory demands of how to build a building with 8 digital demands. And there is a national budget that says that we should implement those digital demands for a price target of approx 2.7 million euros. And we do, in our municipality, we have taken that demand and put it down to building costs from 0.7, that means 700,000 euros, where we start normally with a small kindergarten. So in that perspective, all of our building projects have those demands.
And just to dwell on that for a second, because what is the benefits of taking this threshold and lowering it down to the 700, which was approximately 2 million euros below the national threshold? So what has been the benefits here?
What the success is that all the processes that should be done in a building project, everybody, the architect, the engineer, the client, the contractor, everybody should do the same processes for all building projects, and that is a major force.
Yeah, so having that unified common way of working here. And what is the application process for a permit looks like, and how does that what role does digitalization play in that?
You mean when we have to apply for building permit? It is so that we, as the client, we are hiring an architect and an engineer to do the design project for us, and we hand over the willing of act that they can act on our behalf, and they apply to a building authority digital platform where they upload the material. And I think that's where suddenly we have Adam coming in.
Yeah, because of course the permitting in building any kind of construction is a big driver of this, and we were also discussing before coming on stage some of the large scale projects that we have in Denmark, be it a windmill, for instance, and how permitting, what big of a role permitting and the speed of bureaucracy can play in this. So Adam, yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about how cBrain works with permitting in this respect.
Yeah, thank you. And so when we started out working with a number of Danish authorities, we could see that all their data set were not really connected. There was a lot of paper in the application processes, a lot of in the best, like some PDF files. There was a lot of systems that were not really integrated, and there were not really consistent flows across the process. Many things were still happening in mail. So at the end of the day, it means that the process of structuring a permitting process becomes very complex. you might miss some steps. You spend a lot of time. If you need to change out in your staff, then it becomes difficult to know exactly like where's the process at, what has happened. So what we've done in cBrain was that we've built together with the Danish government an open platform, which is a low-code, no-code platform that can basically go in and configure permitting processes. So we can go in and then, because permitting is complex, I'm sure that people here from the Bund or the Länder or the municipal level, and there's a number of different permitting processes in construction, in different development projects, and the permitting processes may differ. Now we have the Bauturbo, which may differ and may have a variance in some processes according to how the local municipalities will take up the new legislation. So there's a need also to be flexible in the permitting setup. So that's what we've built, basically, together with the government, a platform for configuring and ensuring that you have like a structured, seamless, end-to-end flow with integrated data management. So you have the front end and the back end fully integrated.
And can you maybe give an example of how that then works in practice on a, let's say, a construction project in this case here?
Yeah. So again, it depends a little bit on where in the process you would be at. So, for example, for large construction projects, you may have some screening exercises where you go in and see like what is the extent to which you really need to do an environmental impact assessments. So there we would go in and support the authorities with a solution to do that. I think just to give an example from Germany, and I know that it's a much bigger country, not directly comparable. There's a lot of complexity that we don't necessarily suffer with. But I heard about a developer who told about his project, and they were handing over 48,000 pages in paper. It's a very big project also, but the challenge of processing that information, if you have like deep analysis of, you have perhaps 500 pages of environmental impact assessment analysis, how can you do this and this and that? To get that information and make it relevant to the specific application in place, both for the developer, but also for the authorities, so that you know what kind of restrictions and how to constrain that. That's how you can come in and then do what we call process-driven AI, where you go in and then use specific Gen AI features to synthesize information in large, complex documents so that you can enrich the process steps. So it's basically about like seeing how can you take some of the existing very challenging and time-consuming parts of the case handling and see how you can shorten them and cut them down.
So last week I was moderating not one but two panels where it took us 45 minutes before someone mentioned AI. We didn't make it quite that far today, but that's maybe a good thing. Then coming a little bit back to the construction side and to the building owners here, Søren, could you talk about some of the problems that you faced before you started using these digital tools like BIM and so on?
Yes. In earlier days, we did drawings and documents and a lot of information in a not organized way. The standard demands now helps us to work with information that are combined. We have the BIM, Building Information Modeling, which I think many, hopefully, knows about, where we work with 3D digital models. And if you take out a window, the drawing will update itself, so the window is out, but the 3D sketch has also lost a window, and all is connected in a database. That kind of information we can build up, so it's not only in 3 dimensions. In earlier days we had 2D drawings, now we have 3D, but we can combine it with cost, 4th dimension, time, 5th dimension, environmental, and a lot of things. And I think today we are working and discussing about up to the 10th dimension.
Yeah, and maybe Peter, this is also where you come in here. So can you give an example of how digitalization of specific projects works here?
Yeah, I can do that, and not just one example. I think if we just look at Municipality of Aarhus, there are hundreds of examples of buildings being built and supported by digital tools. In fact, the same digital tools and the same processes and the same standards since at least 2013, which is when it all really started. And that goes for every municipality in Denmark. It's not unique to Aarhus. It goes for every supplier of tools in Denmark that they need to be able to support a client like Aarhus in standardizing and building with digital tools in exactly the same manner. But let's get into the specifics of what it might mean for a project to be supported by digital tools. Søren mentioned already BIM, which is Building Information Modeling, which is a codified way of making sure that we can share information. It's not just a 3D model. It is that, but it's also a way of ensuring that we can port data from a construction phase all through the construction phase and into the actual facility management subsequently. That's where the savings are. So that's a key component of the digital tools in construction in Denmark. All of this is mandated by law and has been for 15 years or so, both for the municipality itself, for all public works, office buildings, research institutes, schools, etc., but also for social housing in Denmark. Everything is built according to the same standards, using the same digital tools. I think that's an important point to mention here. Apart from building information modeling and BIM data, some of the key components, I think I'll mention 3, is that there is always a common data environment established for each project above the thresholds that Søren mentioned. I'm not going to repeat the thresholds because I honestly cannot remember exactly what they are in Aarhus, but there is a threshold above which you need to use digital tools for everything by law. So a common data environment, think of that as SharePoint on steroids more or less, is built every time there is a project. Everything is digitized in terms of the tendering process and hopefully also digitized so that the owner or the advisor of the owner actually publishes the actual quantities that you need to bid on, right? Quantities from the BIM models. And thirdly, I would mention that digital handover from each and every constructed project flows into and is consumed by the facility management solutions of a client. And you might ask, does EG really do all of this for Aarhus Municipality? The answer is no, we do not. We do some of these things for Aarhus municipalities, and our colleagues or competitors in the business does other parts of this. So the good thing about having common digital tools, having mandated the legislation around this, means that we know exactly what to deliver, and our colleagues in the business can deliver the exact same things and the exact same tools, more or less, to the same level, right? There's a high degree of professionalism and standardization also on the tooling side in Denmark. That was a long answer, sorry about that.
No, that's perfectly fine. Because I just want to stick a little bit with this mandated digitalization and what's maybe some of the outcomes has been of this. Like, why has this been successful? Usually when you might think, you mandate something, you make it mandatory. That's also a strong tool in the toolbox to use. But so why has this been successful? Why is this a good thing?
That's 2 different questions. I'll try to answer them in sequence. It's a good thing. Let's start there with what we can actually say about the results. The results, there's not been any testing of a project performed right before the legislation and right after. I actually double-checked using my great assistant ChatGPT yesterday if there was any hard, solid evidence. But there are project-specific research projects in Denmark that shows that the tenders tend to be slightly more cost-effective if you do tenders against quantities from BIM models. The really solid evidence, we'll get back to management, facility management, that's where the real solid evidence and cost savings show up. The second question was, why has this been a good idea? Why has it been well received in Denmark, right? And Søren, you might have something to add as well. Søren is a building owner. I'm a supplier of tools to the building owner. We're missing an advisor, be that an architect or an engineering consultant. I know you used to work like that, Søren, so you could probably answer to that as well. And a contractor. And then we have the full scope of everybody who's involved in digitization of the business in Denmark. Very few involved in the construction of buildings in the public sector in Denmark would say that the mandates have been a bad idea. Most people will say it's been a great benefit, even if it means a bit of extra work in the beginning of a project, right? It's part of the training of architects, of engineers, of tradespeople in Denmark, a specific set of digital tools. The way in which they're used on projects is also being taught. Everybody knows what to do. Now, I could not say how this was 15 or 20 years ago if you moved into a project. I'm sure there were growing pains. I'm sure adaptation was slow. But I can say today and for the past many years, I hope you'll agree, Søren, pick-up and adoption has been almost universally positive in Denmark. So, why wait to start on doing this? That's my 2 cents at least. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you want to add to this, either as a building owner or with your former background as well as an advisor?
Yeah. Today I sit as a building owner who start projects, I quality check them, and I put them into handover and into maintenance. But I've also been working as an architect, and I educate. And what we do have in Denmark is that from the very tiniest little architect company of 10 people, they should come with an ICT manager who can control the data flow through the little building construction phase as a kindergarten. Those people we educate in Denmark. We have a specific program, and we teach them that when you work with data, there's input, output, competences, and standards. All that, the whole knowledge about working with data in the building construction. And that's a whole ecosystem you have to build around your open data. The open data alone will not do it, and the standards.
Very good. And Peter, you also touched a little bit upon this. If we go into the facility management, the maintenance part of the construction cycle, because that's also, as you say, where the real benefits really kick in. So maybe, Søren, you could talk a little bit as the second largest municipality in Denmark. You have a very, very large portfolio of real estate. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the problems that you face in this maintenance.
What we see when we work with digitalization is that the construction phase has been divided into some phases. We have digital phase, we have the design phase, we have the building permit phase, we have the handover phase, we have the maintenance phase. Each time we build up an information level, and it falls down for each handover to the next phase. We see a lot of information loss. And that, I hope, by next generation of digitalization and the construction, that we can help each other. How can we make it even better that we don't get this information loss each time?
Yeah. And maybe, Peter, you can add to this on how you support at EG. How do you support the whole maintenance phase here?
Yeah, and again, I would like to mention that we support a lot of the maintenance going on. Our colleagues in the business also support it. And how do they do that? Even competitors, they do that by adhering to the standards for handing over information about a building once it's constructed and finalized. We just consume that information in the facility management part of the systems. So we're very reliant on everybody in that chain, really delivering, handing over digitally. I would say not perfect, because that's, as you said, Søren, information goes missing, models degrade over time, but at least to a certain level that they deliver information that we can just put into a maintenance system. The municipality has, I believe, more than 2 million square meters of real estate that is being managed, both planned maintenance, service checks, and unplanned maintenance, and doing that on the basis of drawing material, building information that is not standardized or held up to a certain level is almost impossible, and would make the digital facility management almost impossible in a municipality like Aarhus.
Yes, Dan?
And if I just could add why we like to come here today and be a part of the discussion is I think we are in the top 10 league of building owners in Denmark measured on square meters. So we're one of the big ones, and therefore we take the discussions. And we would also like to point on a solution. And solution is that we need the more next level of standards. We talk about the environmental standard is a driver for the next generation. And we also have to discuss a kind of next generation of information which is much more linked. So we're talking not only about BIM data and data information on more dimensions, but information that are linked. And I think that's is a handover to Peter, who mentioned that before, and Adam who also mentioned that.
I think like taking one step back, I think that there are two important discussions in what you raise. I think one of them is very much about this with the environmental impact requirements that are changing now, being more detailed and elaborate. And obviously we need to relate to that and prepare for that. I think also from an environmental perspective, like just the building maintenance is very important. We had an example also from a citizen's perspective in where we worked with a municipality in Denmark. We had a lot of citizen inquiries. And that's always this. You have a question. They had 2,000 requests a year. Like how tall can we build? Is it really legal what my neighbor is doing? And is that really sure? And you can say, well, all this information is available on their website, on the municipality website, but it's very difficult to access. So. That's again like one of the areas where you can go in and then you can build solutions where you go in and manage the process. You go in and say, well, you can synthesize what are they actually asking for, and then we help the municipality like prepare, because you don't want to have a Gen AI solution coming out with 100 different answers every time you give a new prompt from a citizen's on a question. You want to be sure that you have like a solid, well-established answers that can establish precedents for your municipality. So obviously you want to have like a fact-check repository of responses that you can then use in replying to citizens. So we help them automate that process, basically freeing up time for doing other stuff, because citizen queries is something that take up a lot of time in the municipal construction departments. But I think like just to like get back to the main topic on the link between both the maintenance of the buildings and the applications and the constructions of new houses and other projects, other development projects. I think one of the key elements is that the government authority owns their own processes. You really need to be in charge of each process step. And knowing what happens, knowing what data to draw on, and how you can work with the individual process steps. So that as in contrary to having prefixed, rigid systems that would define how you would work, but really like starting out with the process and the actual needs, because you need to have a flexible way of supporting your business. And I think that speaks very nicely into this idea about saying we focus on how to build standards for exchanging data, not necessarily through the same tools, but about building an ecosystem that's open across all the different players, where some parts can go in with the parts of the processes where they add the most value, but where you have an open ecosystem with open IT systems. So that's just to get back to the high level.
Absolutely. Peter, you want to add?
Well, I want to add just a single thing to what you just said, not too much to do necessarily with the early phase of any project, but with the fact that the first generation of tooling in Denmark that supported the digital efficiency in construction was really about adhering to and following what was mandated by the government, right? That was the initial thing. The second generation in the municipalities, etc., was all about selecting a specific set of solutions. Before then, you followed the law, but you did it, and I'm sure you can support this, Søren. You did it by using 5, 6, 7 different solution providers. They all did pretty much the same, and they were all compliant with the legislation. But what we have seen now is that tenders for software packages have been put out. You've selected providers for the entire municipality, the entire region, if you are a region in Denmark, and using a set of tools from one single provider. The beauty is, when you decide to retender after 4 or 6 years, which you have to do and which you probably should do to test what's in the market, it's very, very transparent what you're looking for. It's very, very transparent for whoever's bidding for that contract, for the IT tooling, to actually deliver a compelling proposal. So I think that's worth bearing in mind. After the growing pains, you'll standardize and you'll be able to actually tender these solutions also in the market. Just an add-on to what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can also maybe add from our perspective. So we work with international partners and governments all over Europe and really the world. And we can definitely see this increase for open standards, for interoperability as well. All of these things, it's really, really high on the agenda. Another thing that's also really high on the agenda, maybe less so than a few years ago, is the green transition. So maybe, Peter, you can also talk a little bit about how the green transition and digitalization of construction, how that works together.
Yeah, I can do that. It's actually brand new to us, at least as a provider. I think it's also relatively new to you, Søren. You might have been following this, and we discussed it over coffee. So I'd like to say a little bit about what's called the LCA, or the Life Cycle Assessment criteria for construction in Denmark, which went into law on July 1st. It's an EU directive being now has been legislated in Denmark at least. I looked it up for Germany. I think 28, closer to 2030, this will be also a requirement in Germany. But essentially it's about making sure that when you construct something, you can also assess the impact in CO2 equivalents of what you are constructing. These will be requirements everywhere in the business. So whoever is tendering for a job will need to be able to also tell how much emissions will be the result of what I'm about to build for you, dear client. The clients will set out requirements. Now the technicalities, I'm not a builder myself. The technicalities are that 7 kilograms per square meter that's being built is kind of the upper limit of what you can have as CO2 emissions as part of the construction. This is just the first sign of what this will mean. So it means something for the way to calculate your offers, the tools you use in calculating your offers, the way you get data from the providers of everything that goes into a building site, really. Materials, labor, the machines that you are using to build. You need to also digitize that entire chain, make sure you have data available to actually tender in the right way, to evaluate in the right way, and to sanction if these requirements are not being met. And as said, it's early days. We don't actually know how to fully do this as a provider. We have not had much impact from the market yet. I suspect we will see it and harvest the experiences over the coming years the hard way in Denmark, hopefully. If you do it in Germany in 28 or 30, we'll have made some experiences by then at least that we can perhaps share with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and Søren, do you maybe want to add as a building owner now, you also have these new rules. How do you think about them?
the sustainability rules are some of the rules that we should fulfill. We should be more effective in many ways. So all those demands needs calls for change. And what we see in Denmark is a lot of municipalities, organizations reorganize. The leadership, the management calls for new organizations. We see building centers where we not have 6 departments handling our buildings. We have one large department, so everybody knows that their information are putting into one data set that we can analyze in the organization together. And that organizational change, I think we see, at least I can see when we work with the architects and engineers, the advisor business and the contractors, they're also running through a large organizational change to fulfill those demands, because it needs teamwork and a common mindset to understand what we're actually trying to deliver information where we can measure not only the single building on LCA, CO2, but also on satisfaction and how the buildings are used, all the sustainability demands that are called for. So it's huge and enormous, but we have a very good background to do it on behalf, because we have the first generation digitalization to step on top of that.
Yeah, and Adam, you also have a comment?
Yeah, no, just to add on that, because I think that's the regulation and the requirements for us, whether we are municipalities or lenders or the Bund level, of how to adapt to the green transition will not stop. There will be an ongoing flux of change, new regulatory requirements that all of you as authorities would need to be flexible and agile enough to be able to adapt to. So I think there is an important point in just placing yourself in a position where the way you support your processes is flexible and agile. So where you have systems that are flexible enough to be changed ongoingly. And right now we're looking into across the whole of Europe, also in Denmark, in a lack of IT developers. So we need IT development resources, and of course the more we want to build things ourselves, the more we rely on IT development resources. So I think there's a big need of looking towards already existing solutions and already tested low-code, no-code platforms that allow you the flexibility to move faster. Because at the end of the day, and I can give you a very practical example, we had so one of the things, and you have high-level green transition ambitions, but when you drill it down, it's always about like what regulatory measures can you implement. So that could be, for example, grants, it could be inspections, it could be new requirements to the building as to the constructions. So we did, for example, we had an issue where the energy agency in Denmark called us saying, well, we have this very, very heavy system, we cannot change it. It takes us more than 9 months to pay out all the grants for heat exchange subsidies, so that we can get all the houses to renew their petrol heating systems in their basements. And that meant everybody just sat and was waiting for the agency to handle all the files, and all the people were complaining because it took so long, which meant that the handling time was even longer. So in less than 3 months, we built a new system for handling and managing those subsidies, automating 98% of all the subsidies and allowing for the rest to be paid out in just a few weeks after manual checks in some specific cases. And it's just an example of the power of having platforms, low-code, no-code platforms that allow you to accelerate Because at the end of the day, if we want to deliver on the green transition, we are pretty much in a hurry. And the need is not, we're not measured by the declaration, but we're measured by when we can deliver impact. And that's where the practical solutions, the practical implementation in the processes, in the data, in the solutions really matter.
Absolutely. And I can see we are slowly coming up on time, so I just want to, if there's any questions in the audience, otherwise we'll move on to the next, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I don't know, Peter, if you had was that a hand?
Yeah, a quick comment on the sustainability and the green transition and how it's supported by digital tooling, at least in Denmark. So I kind of wanted to mention it's not really on the agenda, it's not something we discussed, but energy management systems or energy monitoring and the connection between facility management, property, and the energy being used by those buildings is really something that we also are starting to look very intensely at in Denmark. I think every municipality in Denmark by now has an energy management system in place. I believe it will be a requirement for very large property owners to have these systems in place, and a strategy for how to obtain data on energy consumption from the properties and the portfolio. So I just wanted to add that. It's an important part of that discussion as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I would like to ask a question to all three of you, and we'll ask about, let's start with the positive. So what are some of the success factors that we've done right in Denmark that Germany could maybe take some inspiration from? Starting with you, Søren.
From my point of view, the ICT demands for public buildings had made us a very good first step. So when you're talking about Bau here in Germany, I think I think good luck, get started. I think it's a good idea to just get started, and we are ready to take the next step together with you.
Yeah, thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with Søren on that. So the mandates in Denmark, and having said that, it's very easy to say as a Dane, we are 6 million people now. We're the size of a Bundesland. We have 2 levels of government. Last time I checked, you have the Bundesländer. So we only have the federal government and the local municipalities and authorities. So it's very easy to say what we're saying here. I'm sure there's a lot of complexity in implementing it. The third thing, the positive thing, everybody in the business knows what they're talking about when they use a concept like BIM, like ICT, like CDE. All of those abbreviations and those functionalities are well known. The standards are well known. Yeah, I think that's it from my side.
And Adam?
Very much agree. I think it's, I particularly agree, like I know in Germany you just started the process of building a national permitting platform. I know that it includes some areas of the overall need for permitting. So there's still some way to go. But yes, we would of course be very happy to share any experience that might be helpful to you in those processes. I think that even for the very first levels and generations of digitalization that we did together with that we've been part of doing together with the Danish authorities, we can go in and see some very considerable savings in just managing the processes coherently. So really having this end-to-end process flow managed. So I think that would, in my takeaway, I think that's one of the things that really is a positive learning. That's really a positive business case.
And I don't think we'll have time for all three of you for the next question here, but just very briefly to you, Søren, what are some of the learnings or mistakes that Germany can learn from? We talked a little bit about this mandatory aspect.
I think we had a discussion of if you invest in starting lift the low end. I think Adam has the right how to pronounce it, but invest to rise the lowest part, and we have done it by focusing that those state demands go in and lift the small kindergarten, will lift the small architect, the small engineers, and suddenly we have whole the business, the industry of constructing with. So that's a very good success, but we have not come easily. We have done it together, and it takes time. So my recommendation is, again, take the first step.
Get started. Absolutely. And with that, I can see we are out of time. So thanks to the three of you, and thank you, of course, to all of you for listening in. And I'm sure you'll be around if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks to the four of you. This was our contribution from Denmark. Und wir wechseln jetzt wieder